Hello and welcome to the Internet Advertising Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Gock. Today I'd like to talk about email automation, what it is, why it's worth using it, and how you can start setting it up. Now, most email marketing providers have some form of automation. I use Getresponse, so if you'd like to see how that looks, what the interface is like, go to internetadvertisingpodcast.com/automation and you'll see some screenshots. Or better yet, you can sign up for a free account and follow along with this podcast. So let's get started. What is email automation? Basically, it's sending emails based on some triggers. You could say in the old days you had automation too, because when somebody signed up, they got welcome messages or follow-up messages. But automation is the next step. You can program your emails to be sent out after certain actions are completed. You can also do different things with your subscribers. You can tag them. You can add scoring when they do something. Or you can even move them to different lists. So the possibilities are actually very large. The way everything works in Getresponse is that you have cycles and you have automation messages. Now, automation messages, that's pretty obvious. Those are the messages that are sent out when different triggers or different conditions are met. What's a cycle? A cycle is, you could say, a simple program that tells the marketing system what it's supposed to do based on different criteria. You could also compare an automation cycle to a decision tree. So, when you start, you have to choose when the cycle is triggered. You can do it when somebody signs up for a certain list, or when they click on a message, when they open a message, or when they get moved to a certain list. So, for example, you can trigger one cycle when another cycle does something. You can also trigger a cycle when they visit a certain address, URL. Now that's a little more tricky because you have to have a certain code on your website, and also that person has to be tagged so Getresponse knows which subscriber it is. So let's start with the simple things. For example, if they click a link. So let's say you sent out a normal broadcast, and you create a cycle that says when they click the link, a certain link or any link in that broadcast, you want that cycle to start running. Once this condition is met, you can further narrow the targeting. What you can do is filter. So you can say that only people from a certain list will have these actions happen to them. Or you can say that the first 50 people will have these actions triggered, for example, if you just want to send out a limited number of coupons, for example. So that's filters. The next step is where the interesting things happen, because you can choose actions that will happen. So in our example, we had somebody clicking on a link in a broad newsletter. You can then choose to send a different message, or you can move the people to a different list. For example, people that are active, or copy them to that list. Or you can tag them. You can change their scoring. You can add them to a different cycle after you've done something with these people. I think the best way to describe this would be to have a nice example. So let's say you have somebody signed up for your newsletter on a site that has to do with loans. But you talk about different types of loans. So you have mortgage loans, but you also have payday loans. Very different products with very different people. And you like to segment them. What we can do is send out a newsletter or maybe a welcome message that talks about different types of products. So you have something about mortgages and something about payday loans. You set up a cycle that has to do with mortgage loans. If somebody clicks on a link in that first message that everybody gets, and they click on a link to read more about mortgage loans, they're potentially interested in them. So that's the condition of your cycle. What you do is you send a second message that talks only about mortgage loans. What you can do then is you can see if they clicked on the link in that second message. If they did, they're probably very interested in mortgage loans, not just a little bit. So if they click on a link in that second message, you can wait a day, for example, and send an even more targeted message with more sales copy to get them to, say, fill out a longer form and get a quote for a mortgage. If they don't click on that link, you can wait several days and try to send another message. Maybe they missed the first message or they didn't have time to read it. So you can build out your cycle to have these people get more information about the product they're interested in. You can also add an action that will tag them with a mortgage. So later on, if you're sending out a large broadcast only about mortgages, you'll know who to target. You can set up a second cycle that will do the same thing with payday loans. So if in the first welcome message, they clicked on the link about payday loans, they'll get a second message only about payday loans. Then you can wait a day, and if they clicked on that message, you can send them a second message about that, and you can also tag them as interested in payday loans. Some people are going to be interested in both, maybe they're just looking around, they don't really know what they want. Some people just have one tag, but you'll know that, and you'll know which person is which type of customer. Of course, this applies to lots of different fields. If you have an online store with lots of different products, you might not exactly know what they signed up for, which type of product, which category of products they're interested in. So we can use these types of cycles to find out. Before I continue, let me take a minute to talk about my sponsor today. It's Getresponse. Go to internetadvertisingpodcast.com/automation to find out about automation on Getresponse. I've been using them since 2010. That's 8 years. And for the past several years, they've had a great marketing automation solution. It's a graphical editor that you can use to easily build these decision trees that I talked about earlier to have great automation. Like I said, there's tons of conditions, there's tons of actions you can do. You can implement it in your online store, on your website. If you just have a newsletter with no tags on your website, you can do that too. So just check it out, see what it looks like. Go to internetadvertisingpodcast.com/automation. Sign up for free, try it out. I'm sure you'll love it. For the second example, I'd like to tell you about using automation for follow-up emails. That's probably something you're doing already. So even if you don't have any ideas about more advanced automations, like I talked about earlier, you can use it for better email follow-ups. So instead of setting up a normal follow-up that will just be sent at the same time that somebody signed up, for example, on day 1, on day 2, on day 3, you can use automation. You set up a cycle, and, well, the condition is that they sign up for your list. They get your first message, just like a normal follow-up. Then what you do is you add a condition if link clicked in that first message. You can set up how long you want the system to wait to see if the link was clicked. So set that to 1 day. If the condition isn't met, that's the red X, you can send a different message, a second day follow-up. That way it will work like a normal follow-up. But if they did click, then what you do is you wait a day, and only then do you send the next message. Now what this does is, if somebody signed up, they might have done it on the run at a time that wasn't that great for reading messages. They just filled out the form, enter their email. But they actually clicked at a different time. For example, at night when they have time, they check their email and they click and check on the links. So the next message is going to be sent at the time they click the first message. Now, of course, this doesn't guarantee that every day looks the same, but I think there's a bigger chance that the next day they'll have time to click on links at more or less the same time of day as the first time. So when they're checking their inbox, say in the evening, they'll get the email and they'll be ready to click, much more likely than if the email had been waiting in their inbox since morning. Once they've gone through all the follow-up messages, you can move them to a different list, which is just for people that are supposed to get broadcast messages. That way, you won't have people that just signed up and are still on the follow-up cycle getting broadcasts that might not actually be suited to them, or they might think they're getting too many messages, or maybe they're not ready for the broadcast messages because you first want to guide them through those first follow-up messages. So you can use automation to do all that easily. Example number 3, something I like to do also. If I send out a broadcast to everybody, it might be that somebody clicks on a link and is very likely to click on a link in a second message that they get. For example, if you're an affiliate, you have lots of different offers to promote. You might not want to stop with just one offer. But then again, you don't want to send out 2 broadcasts in a day. First of all, because email providers might not like it. And second of all, because the people might not like it. They might just get annoyed that they're getting so many emails. So what you can do is you send out an email broadcast, and then you have a cycle that says, if they clicked on a link in that broadcast, send a second email with something different for them to see. That way, at the exact time they're checking their inbox, the people that clicked will get a second message. And I can tell you the click-through rate of the second messages is very good, and it's extra clicks that you wouldn't have gotten if you had just sent out that first message and nothing else. Next example is something maybe unique to Getresponse, but I like to do double opt-in with my newsletters, but I'm not a big fan of the automatic templates that you have to use for subscription confirmation messages. So I do everything with automation. What I do is I have a campaign with set to single opt-in, but I have a cycle that when somebody signs up, they get a message that's basically a confirmation message, but one that I have customized exactly to my liking. When somebody clicks on a link in that message, I tag them as being confirmed, and I move them to another list. So I know that these people are people that are confirmed, and I'm not going to be sending any newsletters or other messages to people that haven't confirmed. And once in a while, I can see people that are on this list, this first list, that have been there for, say, a month and haven't confirmed, and I can just delete them as people that probably never will click that confirmation link. So I have double opt-in, but with text in my confirmation message exactly the way I like it. I hope this episode gave you the basic idea of how automation works and how you can go about starting to use it. Be sure to go to internetadvertisingpodcast.com/automation to see how it looks. Open a free account with Getresponse, play around. I'm sure you're going to like it. Thanks for listening to the Internet Advertising Podcast. Visit us at internetadvertisingpodcast.com. To hear more, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, or your podcast client of choice. You can reach me on Twitter at GocMichael. That's GocMichael. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about next. Till next time.